It is Friday, December 18th, and that means it's time for my news radar. So let's start off with an update on the game that everyone is still continuing to talk about because of the absolute train wreck that it has become. Of course, I'm speaking about Cyberpunk 2077. If you don't know, the game launched in a state where the last-gen consoles, or the consoles that everyone has, i.e. PlayStation 4 and Xbox One, that version of the game is so incredibly buggy and runs so poorly that many users began asking for refunds for their game. Now the problem here is that the people who are asking for refunds are just not having a whole lot of luck. CD Projekt Red, the developer of Cyberpunk 2077, actually has opened up an email address which is helpmerefund@cdprojectred.com for those who could not successfully secure a refund from either Sony or Microsoft. It seems like the Xbox One users have had some mixed results, whereas the PlayStation users have largely been unsuccessful. Well, that is until now. Guys, I'd actually already filmed this entire video, edited it, exported it, had it scheduled, ready to go when news broke that Sony is doing something quite enormous in regards to Cyberpunk 2077. Let's jump over to this news article from IGN where they give the details here. Here's a quote directly from Sony. What it reads here is that Sony strives to ensure a high level of customer satisfaction. Therefore, we will begin to offer a full refund for all gamers who have purchased Cyberpunk 2077 via PlayStation Store. They will also be removing Cyberpunk 2077 from the PlayStation Store until further notice. Once we have confirmed you purchased Cyberpunk 2077 via PlayStation Store, we will begin processing your refund. Please note that the completion of the refund may vary based on your payment method and financial institution. Now, this news is literally breaking like right as I'm filming this, and it's unclear to me. I mean, is this something you have to go, request this refund? Is this something that's automated? I'm not really sure, but the fact that it's not even going to be on the PlayStation Store anymore is absolutely insane, and it should show you exactly how serious this problem is, that Sony is taking it to this length. It is no longer going to be in the PlayStation Store. Absolutely wild. What an absolute disaster, and this really underscores the return policy problems on consoles. If I bought this thing on Steam, I can just get a refund so long as I've not played it a whole bunch. They have like an hour limit, like a limit of how many hours you could have played the game before they won't refund you. And even still then, they'll probably still refund you a lot of the time. Because if I bought this thing and it came out in the state that it's in, after CD Projekt Red hid this version of the game from the public by not giving keys to the reviewers before launch, so that basically when it came out, no one knew how bad it was, boy, that's got to get fixed. It is a real problem. So it looks like Windows 10X is just right around the corner. So what better time than to go over this awesome article that Windows Central has written by Zach Bowden, where he basically gives a full rundown of what Windows 10X actually is, what it means, what it's going to mean to you. And basically what Windows 10X is it's a stripped down version of Windows 10. They're totally rebuilding the backend in such a way that it's going to be a better fit for convertible devices. As Zach puts it, this means everything from the Windows shell to the underlying OS has been rebuilt with modern technologies. As a result, Windows 10X does not support legacy Win32 apps at launch, although that is something that's coming later. So when it launches, you're going to have basically the UWP apps, the things that are in the store, with Win32 app support coming later. So I think what's interesting about Windows 10X, though, is the fact that it's being built to take advantage of newer sorts of devices. Things like, the Surface Duo obviously runs Android, but that is a new style device that we've not seen before. Here's an image here from Microsoft where they're showing, something that looks kind of like Surface Neo, but slightly different from that even. And that's what they're building Windows 10X for. They're building it for the next wave of new kinds of devices. The Surface Pro line, who knows, maybe that will run Windows 10X as an option down the line. A really interesting thing here that he mentions is that Control Panel, File Explorer, all these things are gone on Windows 10X. They're being rebuilt from the ground up. A lot of what is in Windows 10 is sort of old stuff with new stuff like Frankenstein style stapled to the side of it. Windows 10X is sort of a from the ground up reimagining of Windows 10. You've got a new start menu, a new way that they're holding apps down at the bottom on your taskbar, which he does mention there as well. The Action Center looks basically like Chrome OS. It looks very similar to something like that, which is not necessarily a bad thing at all. And everything has this beautiful, nice, modern look to it, which I actually am really, really intrigued by. Now, obviously, a big thing to consider, though, is that, people on Windows use Win32 apps. Am I going to be able to run Steam and my games on Windows 10X with comparable performance down the line? Will Windows 10X run concurrently with Windows 10 in perpetuity? Is this something that they plan on replacing Windows 10 eventually with? Who knows? I think a really interesting question, though, is what would something like Surface Duo have been like if instead of running Android, if it was running Windows 10X or something like that? What kind of a device would this thing have been? How necessary is the access to app? I just talked about in a recent video that TikTok has native dual screen support now for Surface Duo running Android. How important is an app like TikTok to people that own Surface Duo? For me, I feel like it's fairly important, not TikTok specifically, but having access to my Android apps. Maybe if they can find a way, there's been rumors that Android apps are going to be running on Windows soon. Maybe they can run on Windows 10X, and then you've got a pretty compelling option for an OS for something more mobile and portable like the Duo, like the Surface Pro devices, like the Surface Neo. Windows is really good. Windows is a great operating system, but there are times when you do feel like you're using a really old OS with some new ideas sort of stapled to it or duct taped to it, like Frankenstein's monster. So the idea of rebuilding Windows from the ground up is not a bad idea. He closes up here basically talking about how we're looking at launches this spring for the commercial market, and they're going to be starting off in sub $600 PCs because they are targeting the Chromebook market. They're trying to get back into the education segment and things like that. Although I do believe that eventually, just like with Chromebooks, there are really expensive Chromebooks. You're going to get some high-end premium Windows 10X devices as well down the line. And as it says here in this last paragraph, Windows 10X is its own OS. If you have Windows 10, you won't be able to upgrade or side upgrade, whatever you'd call that, to Windows 10X. You're not going to have an ISO available. You're going to have to buy a device with Windows 10X on it. Although, let's be honest, that probably won't stay true for very long because people will do all sorts of hacky things, and I'm sure you'll be able to download it. Probably illegally, though. Speaking of Surface Pro devices, we have even more leaks of the Surface Pro 8, and honestly, look, it looks kind of like the Surface Pro 7, but MS Power User has a whole handy gallery here worth of images. And from this image here, this is exactly the Surface Pro 7, which sits on the table behind me. That's Surface Pro 7. The screen looks the same. The bezels look the same. I like the blue keyboard, but that's not new either as far as I can recall. This thing looks like a Surface Pro 7, but we do apparently have some more information to share as far as the specifications. There is going to be an i7 model with up to 32 gigs of RAM, which is really cool. And then there's, the i5 tops out at 16 gigs of RAM, which is still quite good, but getting a 32 gig model is going to be really, really useful for a lot of people. And there is an LTE model, which will be exclusively the i5 model. So if you find yourself being the Uber on the go type of person, that i5 model with LTE could be a good option for you. So guys, kind of a light news couple of days here, but it is what it is. That's all the news I do have for you today. Be sure to check back every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for the next edition of my News Radar. And until next time, stay nerdy, my friends. If you enjoy my content, please consider becoming a Scary If Literal member. You'll get access to a whole bunch of emoticons to use with live streams and a shout out on an upcoming video. Thanks as always for your continued support.